Prabhupada, his presence was so powerful that when you came in his presence, you didn't feel like you were a part of the material world. You felt that you were in some kind of a spiritual, transcendental environment. I didn't know about Vrindavan then, but now we'd say that Prabhupada actually was bringing Vrindavan with him. And so you felt the mood of Vrindavan whenever you came in the presence of Prabhupada. He was actually carrying Krishna in his heart. So I didn't understand that, but I felt that. Just being with Srila Prabhupada, I could feel the change. I could see that here was a genuine spiritual master that was actually practicing what he was preaching, or practicing what he was teaching. The other people that I visited, they had books and they had teachings, but then they didn't practice those things, where Prabhupada was. So at that, all these things helped to build up my faith, but then Prabhupada was very merciful and he immediately engaged me in service. He had me be an assistant to, at that time his secretary was Govinda Dasi, I think Gorsundar. I forget, I think it was Gorsundar, I'm not sure, I can't remember, I think. And so when they would go shopping, when Prabhupada took the afternoon nap, and I would, they would have me like, they'd call it babysit or guru sit. I had to sit outside just in case Prabhupada woke up and wanted something, then I would be on call. And usually he didn't want anything. But I would be there while they were out just at that time. So sometimes Prabhupada would wake up and he'd call me in, and then he would ask me different things. He said he wanted to get a flower. This was he said that if I get a flower every day, this will improve my, this will increase my longevity. So he asked me, can you bring me a flower? A rose, especially a rose, not just a flower, I wanted a rose. And then I was very excited, here the spiritual master was asking me to bring him a rose every day. So I said yes. So I went back to the temple and then told the temple president I was going to get a rose for Srila Prabhupada. And the president said, what are you doing? You're in Maya. You can't do that. I said, why? Prabhupada told me to get him a rose. And I had phoned up, he heard me phone up a florist and order, I was going to go and pick up a rose. And he got really angry that, I shouldn't do that. But I thought he was like imposing himself, that I'll do everything else you say, but this one thing, Prabhupada asked me to bring him a rose. I want to bring him the rose. He got very angry and said I couldn't do that, I should do something else. So I became a little angry because he was yelling at me, and it was, so anyway, I kind of just left the temple with the vibrations ringing in my ear, and I was walking off. And I got to like a dead end where the road, it didn't go any further. And nearby I saw there was a florist shop. And that whole time I would just, I wasn't able to think. So I walked in the florist shop, I thought, well, I'll get a rose. And the person said, oh, here, I've been waiting for you, here's the rose. Turned out it was the exact shop that I'd called. But I'd forgotten the address and everything. So then I went back and I saw Prabhupada and bowed down, and I offered him the rose, and he took it. So thank you very much.
One thing that really struck me is one of the first letters Srila Prabhupada ever sent me was when he was in India. And I had that tremendous desire to take care of him when he came back. For those 3 weeks had really changed my life. Spending 3 weeks with him after he got out of the hospital, I really wanted to continue serving him in that way. And so the whole 6 months he was in India, I was praying to Lord Jagannath every day that if he comes back, please let me be his servant, please let me cook for him, please let me clean his room, let me do anything, just let me be near him, let me serve him and be near him. This was my very strong desire. And so I got a letter from him, and in the letter, the last statement was, I know your mind. I know your mind.
Also with that building in Detroit, when Prabhupada, this is Deva Siddham Mandir, when Prabhupada walked through, he had no money at the time, you know, for this particular project. He had no money. And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous building. In fact, we didn't know what to do with it. There was a painting in the front lobby of all these naked women bathing. So all the sannyasis, they were all, everyone trying to be proper about things. Prabhupada looked at it, turned to the men and said, very nicely done. Then they came to where there was a big polar bear rug, the kind with the head and the teeth and everything. So Srila Prabhupada looked at it and very gingerly took his cane, put the tip of his cane in the mouth and lifted up and looked at the teeth. And very wide-eyed like a child, he turned to Jagadish Maharaj and said, they eat men? And Jagadish Maharaj said, sometimes, Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada put it down and made a wide berth as he walked around the rug, and it was just very sublime. Prabhupada said at one point, the man was asking, I think, $1,000,000 something, or close to $1 million. Prabhupada said, every room is worth $1 million. In fact, it was even designed, there were 3 arches. They used to have the ballroom dancing, and they had where the orchestra was. There was 2 small arches and a large arch, just like we do for Jagannath, Radhakrishna, and Gaura-Nitai. And even there were carved peacocks, there were lotuses, everything was carved, everything was designed. Prabhupada said, actually, this rich man, Krishna engaged him in building this building for us, and has simply been lying, waiting for us to come pick it up. So Prabhupada was had a vision for the building. So he walked through the whole thing, just like he could pull the money out of his bead bag. Just, price wasn't even an issue, and Prabhupada was talking about this and that. So finally outside there's a sunken garden, and they were sitting in the grotto area, their nice sun, everything was very peaceful. And the man was a very greedy man. He was like a real money grubber guy. You could see the grease on his fingers, practically speaking. So when he sat down, and here was Srila Prabhupada, loved the building, and Prabhupada's, sublime aristocratic nature, that Prabhupada could just write the check. So Prabhupada said, this building is perfect for our purposes. Every room is exquisite. It's exactly what we want. He said, very aristocratic building. So the man was like, could taste the money. And Prabhupada turned to him and said, but we are not aristocrats. He said, we are professional beggars. Therefore, you should give it to us. And I thought the man was going to have a cardiac arrest, at the point. He was like, ah, ah. So Prabhupada actually toyed with him. There's a whole story how Prabhupada toyed with him back and forth. And ultimately, Prabhupada got the building. The man actually tried to cheat us. After we got it, Ambarish gave half the money, I think, and then Lekha Shavanti, Lisa Ruther, gave half the money. And this way Prabhupada was able to, although he had nothing outside of his desire, and Krishna arranged the building and Prabhupada picked it up. And no one could believe the price Prabhupada got for it. In fact, the man, we got a call from a neighbor that after the papers were signed, that the man was stripping the building. He was taking all the mirrors off the walls, all the doorknobs, all the fixtures, all the light, because everything was very opulent. He was stripping whatever he could. So we actually went and stopped him. He had one truck there. And we said, how can you do this? He said, I can't help it. He said, your Swami cheated me. So they told Prabhupada the story later on. That's when one of the times Prabhupada said, yes. Prabhupada said, I am a Calcutta boy. So he'd met his match with Srila Prabhupada.
I remember one time he was giving a lecture, and he was the whole lecture saying how we had to be 10% Krishna conscious. We had to be completely surrendered to Krishna, 100%. And he was just ramming that point home. And at the end of the class, the devotees were kind of, very serious and looking down, as if he could read their minds. That 100%, who could come up to that standard? So then he looked at them, and now he kind of relaxed his mood a little bit, and he said, well, if you can be 90% Krishna conscious, then you can also go back to Godhead. And then he started to slightly turn to prepare. There was a very big Vyasasana, and he was very high up. It was maybe 4 feet in the air. It was so he had to go down steps to get down the Vyasasana. So he was just starting to turn, and then he said, even 80%. Even if you're 80% surrendered, Krishna will still take you. So then he turned, and he got down the Vyasasana, and he was walking away, and he has chadar, his robe the chadar was flowing with one hand, and then it was dragging on the ground, and he just kind of looked, stopped at the devotees, looked at the devotees, and then he said, even if you're 70% Krishna conscious, still Krishna will take you in it. He threw the chadar over his shoulder and walked off with his head very high in the air.